Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to showcase the first round of the Nations Cup World Series event. Round 1 takes place at Spa and is run in Group 3 cars, and today I've chosen the Nissan GT-R. This is actually the second race I ran this evening. The first I failed to get a recording of or save a replay, so I'll just be showing you the second race. In the first, I managed to qualify for third, but had a massive moment at turn 8 that sent me spiraling down the race order into last place. I was able to recover for the most part and finished in 6th. Not wanting to leave round 1 in kind of a sorry state, I took another hour to nail down a solid pace over that of a fast lap time, and I do believe it paid off. As you can see, I qualified second, only 8/100ths of a second off the leader, and that's going to be a bit of foreshadowing as I'm going to be able to use that pace to my advantage and make sure he sees and feels constant pressure exuding from his rear view mirrors. The bulk of the lobby seemed to be off-meta cars, and I was surprised to see 2 A-ranked drivers in this GT2 lobby. GT2 is supposed to be purely B-ranked drivers, so most likely they increase their DR shortly after registration. Regardless, this was good for me as the points on offer were greater in this race than in my previous. For my general strategy, having qualified for second, I just wanted to slap on a set of the mediums, find my way around P1 as quickly as possible, and jet off into the sunset, hoping that my new rival would not be able to settle into a rhythm and keep pace. At the very least, starting this close to the front, I wanted to have the medium tires to help set a gap-inducing pace to anyone behind us and buy myself time to gain the upper hand on P1. Now, fuel was not at all a factor in this race. It was only set to 2x consumption, and 12 laps is not enough to get all the way through one tank at that rate. If it had been set to 3x, fuel-saving measures would most likely have been needed, and 4x would have definitely required refueling at the pit. Here we go into turn 1. It was absolutely crucial to make sure that I nailed this first turn and get strong acceleration down the hill for this first lap, as I cannot afford to lose the slipstream and let the straight line speed of the Toyota Supra ahead of us force me to have to play catch up right from the beginning. You may have noticed that right off the bat, a gap is opened up to the racers behind me. P3 ends up losing the rear end, accelerating out of the turn, and immediately generates chaos. Not only is everyone behind him forced to slow down, but this is going to compromise everyone's top speed up the hill and down the Kemmel Straight, opening up the gap wider. This puts me in a supremely advantageous situation. All the pressure is now off of my back and squarely on P1's, at least for the foreseeable next few laps. Having now reeled in my opponent, I'm anxious to find an opportunity to fulfill my goal of an early pass and take race lead. As my opponent goes wide at turn 11, I'm immediately provided my first chance. Driving alongside P1, downhill towards turn 12, I feel like I've cemented the position, but the unfamiliar positioning of my car into this turn causes me to come into the turn too fast and almost lose total control as I swing out far too wide. I'm able to quickly regain control and reassume my position in P2, but at a loss of time and the slipstream. I'm most thankful that this didn't involve my competition and force us both to lose the time we've lucked into to the drivers anxious to catch up. Having lost the toe to P1, this puts me in a bad position approaching what is effectively the back straight. Sector 3 is comprised of 3 long sweeping turns that are handled with your foot to the floor and end with a tight chicane back to the starting line. Being out of the slipstream to the car in front for Sector 3 is a massive loss to correcting my botched passing attempt from before. I focus in, make sure I get a good starting run, and don't overshoot turn 18. Easy to do if you're not actively anticipating the turn. I hook it up correctly, but in my drive to catch up, I slightly miss my braking point and almost cause myself more trouble into the chicane. However, I'm able to remedy the situation, and fortunately my opponent doesn't get the best exit, so I find myself actually not losing any time. One lap down and still so many to go. It was an interesting first lap, but unfortunately I've not gained anything, and if anything, given up some to the leader. However, he won't hook up the turn 1 hairpin very well, and that will place me back into a slipstream, pretty much back at square one. Now the slipstream effect from this distance is not going to be enough for me to gain on P1, especially with the super straight line speed, but I will get towed along, preventing me from losing time. At this point, I want to hope that my opponent will continue to make the little mistakes that he was making during our first lap that allowed me to quickly close the gap. Starting into Sector 2, it looks like my opponent seems to be somewhat finding their rhythm. The multiple small mistakes that propelled me alongside them going into Turn 12 are fewer and less dramatic, but still, I'm gaining and watching closely for a second window to pass. The gap to P3 has expanded to 3 seconds now. It's not exploding, but certainly growing. Pressure on this race is still directly on the shoulders of our immediate opponent. Coming down the hill into Turn 12, I'm not going to have anything close to a positional advantage like I did on the previous lap. What I am focused on is making sure that I hook up the corner as cleanly as I can, as this turn is one of my weaker points on the track. I want to make sure I keep up with them into the winding final corners of Sector 2 and potentially close for a stronger slipstream into the back straight. Whoa, and there it is. A big moment coming out of Turn 14. P1 comes out of the corner a little too wide and finds their tires on the green stuff. Whatever it is that surface is made of, it's extremely slippery and you don't want any part of it. The gap crumbles and compromises his starting run onto the back straight. My exit at Turn 16 is excellent and gives me the run on P1. However, this shows how very fast the Super is, because regardless of the advantage I had, I still struggled to get alongside them. Now here there seemed to be some sort of synchronization issue and the Super is jerked forward. Where I was initially primed to challenge them into the corner, I pull out, not wanting to risk the situation being different than what my screen is telling me it is. P1 struggles through the chicane. My entrance and exit is clean. Heading towards the hairpin, I could feel it. This was my opportunity. Their entrance into the turn is already compromised, and I capitalized by maintaining a very tight apex and accelerating out, finally getting the move done. Now from this point, we're going to swap over to the replay camera so we can keep the action in frame. We're coming up into the Kemmel Straight where another swap would most likely be to happen. However, I get a superior run through Rouge and am able to stave off any potential return attack into Turn 7. I even double my efforts on cementing my position by trying to disrupt the toe, making a quick movement to the right and left of the track. Up to this point, Sector 2 has noticeably not been the strongest for my opponent. I'm hoping that this will remain the case and I'll be able to open up the delta and finally be free to sprint away. Sure enough, the gap opens and I'm allowed a small space to breathe. Now that I've established some breathing room, I want to take a moment to thank you for watching this video. It means a lot to me that you've watched up to this point. I enjoy putting these videos together when I have the opportunity, and that chance doesn't often present itself. If you like what you've seen, do me a favor and like the video, leave an encouraging comment, and consider subscribing so you can catch the next one. I'll definitely want to do videos throughout the World Series events, so you'll have those to look forward to. Now back to the race at hand. From this point, it really just became a sprint to the finish. As you'll see here, each lap, the gap to the pack opens wider and wider, about a second each lap. I'm trying to figure out when I want to pit, but so long as the gap to P2 continued to open and I felt comfortable on my continually degrading tires, the decision felt arbitrary. So long as I pit before the last lap and swap over to the mandatory hards, I was going to be fine. Ultimately, I decided at the end of lap 10, when the delta had hit a peak of 10 seconds, now was as good a time as any. From here, I do get overtaken as I'm in the pits, but the new P1 had been following me all race, long after he had overtaken my primary rival. He ends up pitting at the end of the lap, swapping over to hard tires, and I bring the race home for an unexpected victory. I say unexpected because somehow in that entire race, I managed to not be my own worst enemy. This should be a testament for how important consistency on the track can be, just as important, if not more important, than raw speed. It wasn't my pace here that brought me across the finish line first, but keeping my screw-ups minimal over that of my opponents. Here's the confirmation of the victory, followed by my current ranking. First in the States for GT2. I'm super excited to see if I can hold on to that at the conclusion of round 2. Again, thank you so much for watching, subscribe to the channel, and join me on the next one. See ya.